Welcome back, students, in the last part of our discussion regarding Iliad. And here I shall concentrate on few important points, the critical commentaries made by renowned and eminent literators and philosophers and critics. You see, unlike the gods' portrayal in Greek religion, Homer's portrayal of gods suited his narrative purpose. I have already told you in the class the concept of anthropomorphic, right? And this was a vehement criticism against Homer done by Plato. Plato criticized Homer for depicting the gods, the very sacrosanct ideas, religious ideas surrounding the gods, that Homer had falsely portrayed the gods, right? Like the humans, anthropomorphic. The gods have lost their exalted status. You see, the gods in traditional thought of 4th century Athenians were not spoken of in terms. Writers to name and describe the gods' appearance and characters are like Herodotus, Hesiod, who was contemporary of Homer. These are the few authors whose commentaries can be found in modern days. We have a critic named Mary Lefkowitz. In the year 2003, she discusses the relevance of divine action in Iliad and her attempt to answer the question of whether or not divine intervention is a discrete kind of occurrence for its own sake, or if such godly behaviors are mere human characters metaphors. Right? The intellectual interest of classic era authors such as Thucydides and Plato was limited to their utility, as we can often say within quote, a way of talking about human existence without the foundation of either dogma or a Bible of faith. So this kind of attitude allowed the Greek culture the intellectual breadth and freedom to conjure gods fitting any religious function they required as a people. So at that time there was no concrete concept of religion as such, right? So their religion had no founder and was not the what they wanted. As the Greek religion was created out of a consensus of the people, right? So this creation inspired people, and people eventually inspired each other to follow a certain path. And this is how these mythologies were created in due course of time. Atkins and Pollard, another two critics, agree with this statement. They say that the early Greeks personalized every aspect of their world, natural and cultural, and their experiences with it. The art, the sea, the mountains, the customs, law, the rivers, and the portrayal of society, the dichotomy between the good and the bad were all seen in personal as well as naturalistic terms. As a result of this thinking, each god and goddesses in such a called polytheistic phenomenon, in this polytheistic world of Greek society, are attributed to an aspect of the human world. For example, you see when Poseidon is the god of the sea, right? Aphrodite is the god of beauty, Ares is the god of war, and so on and so forth for many other gods. So, in our Hindu religion, we also have a similar style, a similar depiction, a similar qualities attributed to particular gods and goddesses. Devi Saraswati. Saraswati is the goddesses of education and wisdom. Lord Vishnu. Vishnu is the god of prosperity. Brahma is the creator. Devi Durga occupies the Shakti, the power. Right? We also have the idea of Jomraj, who is very similar to Hades in Greek mythology, the god of afterlife. Right? There is a belief that after our death we are approached by Jumraj. So this this is the phenomenon that can be witnessed in case of a polytheistic religion. Polytheism means the religion having multiple gods, pitted against the monotheistic view. Monotheism means the religion having a single god, a unified idea of God, like Islam, like Christianity, right? And also like the Jew, the Israelists, right? So these people worship a single vision of God, whereas polytheistic religion worship the multiple gods. And very interestingly, each god or goddesses is ascribed a particular set of qualities. There is no single god who has a manifold qualities, right? uh, the same can be witnessed in case of reading the mythologies of Iliad and Odyssey and other Greek works. You see, Julian Jaynes, a very eminent psychologist, he says that the Iliad as a major piece of evidence for his theory of the bicameral mind, which posits that until about the time described in the Iliad, humans had a far different mentality from present day human beings, right? So those contemporary people, their outlook, their standpoint were much different to us. He says that humans during that time were lacked or what we today call as consciousness. In Bengali, what we term as chetona. He suggests that humans heard and obeyed commands from what they identified as gods until the change in human mentality that incorporated the motivating force into the conscious self. He points out that almost every action in the Iliad is directed, caused, or influenced by a god, and that earlier translations show an astonishing lack of words suggesting thought, planning, or introspection. You see, those, according to this Julian Jaynes, do not appear and are misinterpreted by translators imposing a modern mentality on those epic characters. So what this psychologist is basically trying to say, that he is basically delineating the difference between the mental attitude, the psychological attributes, the qualities of present day reader and critics, and the characters, the divine or the mortal characters whom we find in the pages of the epics. Their approach to the world was much different, right? Of course, we are much advanced, right? We tend to analyze any natural phenomenon with the laws of science and technology, by knowledge, by practical knowledge. And whatever goes against our conventional perception of this world, we categorize those attitudes as superstitions, andhobishwash, what we call in Bengali. But at that time, there was no such development of human civilization, and that is why each and every god was attributed, was provided with a certain kind of quality. These things you should ponder while reading Iliad. Right? These are the few areas from which objective questions, having subjective approach, as I have taught you the last day, can come. So prepare well and study hard for your exams.